The time is 8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Dilini Gunawardena and read by Tilani Pires. The headlines. The Minister of Health says that no cases have been reported from the sample tests conducted on the COVID-19 sub-variant JN1. It has been estimated that approximately 2% of the gross domestic product is lost due to the VAT exemptions that prevailed. Landslide early warnings are issued to 6 districts of the island. Cabinet approval is granted for the formulation of a national policy framework for the agricultural sector. The Sri Lanka Navy is to ink an MOU with the US Nuclear Security Administration. And on international news, the Israel War Cabinet due to meet tonight to discuss day-after-war plans. And on sports news, tennis, Rafael Nadal wins at Brisbane International on long-awaited return from injury. The Minister, Dr. Ramesh Patirana, ensured that the Ministry of Health is closely monitoring the emergence of the novel COVID-19 subvariant JN1 reported from India, while acknowledging that no cases have been reported from the samples tests conducted thus far. The Minister urged the public to adhere to the health practices established during the previous waves of COVID-19. Preparations have been finalized for a vaccination program aimed at controlling the resurgence of the measles disease across the country. Accordingly, the program is scheduled to commence next week and will be administered to the medical officer of health officers island-wide. The Minister made these comments during the press conference held at the Presidential Media Centre today under the theme Collective Path to a Stable Country, the ongoing initiative to provide quality and advanced medicines to the people of Sri Lanka under the free health service is being consistently implemented. The country experienced a shortage of certain medicines due to the economic downturn after the COVID crisis. However, with the steady improvement of the country's financial situation, the government has expedited the procurement process to obtain essential medicines. To enhance transparency in the procurement of medicines for hospitals, preparations are underway to digitize procurement activities. Expert advice is being sought from the computer science departments of the University of Colombo and University of Moratuwa. This effort is expected to streamline future procurement activities. It has been estimated that approximately 2% of the gross domestic product is lost due to the VAT exemptions that prevailed. Consequently, Value-Added Tax Act was passed in the Parliament yesterday in view of achieving revenue-driven fiscal consolidation. About 138 goods and services had been exempted from the VAT. 43 goods and service items have still been exempted from the newly passed VAT Act as well. The NBRO has issued landslide early warnings to 6 districts of the island. Accordingly, Level 3 red notice alerts have been issued to Ududumbara, Divisional Secretariat of the Kandy District. Level 2 warning alerts have been issued to Lunugala and Passara Divisional Secretariats of the Badulla District, Madagama Divisional Secretariats of the Monaragala District, Alla Saranathota, Meegaha Kula and Karandenya, and also Haliala Divisional Secretariat of the Badulla District, and Pasbage Korale, Path Heva Hatter Divisional Secretariats of the Kandy District are under Level 1 warnings. They are also applicable to Nagoda Divisional Secretariat of the Gaul District, Pitabadra Divisional Secretariat of the Mathura District, and Walapane and Hanguranketa Divisional Secretariats of the Nuwara District. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The Cabinet has given the nod to formulate a national policy framework with the participation of experts to get the contribution of the agricultural sector to build a developed Sri Lanka by 2048. Further, the approval was granted to establish a secretariat for modernization of agricultural sector under the office of the President. The approval was also granted to set up agricultural sector modernization services and awareness centers at the Divisional Secretariat Division level for an effective, sustainable and well-coordinated implementation of agricultural sector modernization activities. Additionally, approval was granted to amend the Agricultural Development Act and other relevant legislations to implement the proposed program. These proposals were tabled by President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Cabinet meeting held on Monday. The Sri Lanka Navy is slated to sign a Memorandum of Understanding with the National Nuclear Security Administration of the United States regarding the prevention of illegal transportation of nuclear and other radioactive materials. The proposal presented by the President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Defence to sign the relevant MOU was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers at its meeting held on Monday. Accordingly, the draft of the MOU has already received clearance from the Attorney General, while the Sri Lanka Atomic Energy Regulatory Council, the Sri Lanka Atomic Energy Board and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Department of National Planning have also reviewed the draft. That ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
The government has decided to give the National Transport Commission the authority to take decisions pertaining to the charges and fares levied for public transportation, including railways, three-wheelers and school transport services. Speaking at the Cabinet press conference held today, Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said the relevant documents have been sent to the Attorney General in order to amend the relevant act. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
This is Watchlight. The Sri Lanka Police introduced a hotline for the public to provide information in relation to the ongoing massive anti-drug operation Yuktaya, which is being carried out across the island. The hotline was introduced under the directive of the Acting Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Thenakone, while stickers displaying the relevant hotline number were also pasted on the back of three-wheelers today. Accordingly, the public has been urged to contact the police headquarters via the telephone number 071 859 8800. Once again, 071 859 8800 if they have any information about drug-related offenders or underworld activities. That was Watchlight. Coming up, World News. World News headlines first. Israel's war cabinet due to meet tonight to discuss day-after-war plans. 5 dead on Coast Guard plane after Japan Airlines crash in Tokyo. Thailand and China are to waive visa requirements from March. Israel's war cabinet and its security cabinet are due to meet in Tel Aviv tonight to discuss plans for the day after the war in Gaza, according to Israeli reports. The government has been criticized for previously delaying talks on such a crucial issue. The US has been pushing for a clear plan on who will govern Gaza after the war so that the Israeli military does not remain indefinitely in the territory. Its Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is scheduled to return to the Middle East this week. Israeli media suggests that the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is facing opposition from his far-right coalition partners about Gaza's future. 5 people aboard a Japanese Coast Guard plane have died after their aircraft collided with a passenger plane in Tokyo's Haneda Airport, and the Coast Guard plane was due to deliver aid to areas hit by Monday's deadly earthquake. All 379 people on board the burning Japan Airlines plane were evacuated. Fire ripped through the Japan Airlines Flight 516, which had taken off from Hokkaido in northern Japan nearly 2 hours earlier. Thai Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin said Thailand and China will permanently waive visa requirements for each other's citizens from March. Thailand waived visas for Chinese nationals in September in a bid to boost tourist arrivals. The program saw strong response at a time when Thailand was starting to lose its appeal for Chinese travelers. Authorities said 22,000 Chinese entered the Southeast Asian nation in the first 2 days of the waiver. The Thai Tourism Authority has set a target of 8.2 million Chinese tourist arrivals for 2024. Back to the world news headlines. Israel's war cabinet due to meet tonight to discuss day-after-war plans. 5 dead on Coast Guard plane after Japan Airlines crash in Tokyo. Thailand and China are to waive visa requirements from March. That ends world news. Development news. According to the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourist Development Authority, Priyantha Fernando, Sri Lanka has welcomed 210,552 tourists in December, taking the total for the year to 1,487,303. The top market was India with 43,973 visitors, followed by the Russian Federation with 29,657 visitors. In December, the top 5 tourist markets were India, Russia, United Kingdom, Germany and Australia. That came to you in development news. Moving on with sports news. Rafael Nadal, impressed on his long-awaited return after almost a year out with injury, has beat Dominic Thiem at the Brisbane International. The 37-year-old contesting his first singles match since a second-round loss at the Australian Open 349 days ago sealed a 7-5-6-1 win. Spain's 22-time Grand Slam champion has indicated this season will likely be the last of his illustrious career. Wildcard Nadal is using the tournament to prepare for the Australian Open. The first Grand Slam of the year starts on January 14th in Melbourne. That came to you in sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Bank of Ceylon has been named the Bank of the Year Sri Lanka by the prestigious Banker magazine UK. Bank of Ceylon was also listed among the top 1,000 banks in the world by the magazine for the 12th consecutive year and is the only Sri Lankan bank to be listed for 2023. The bank's sustained commitment to revolutionizing banking and enhancing customer delight is also reflected in the results. That came to you in Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
The Sri Lanka Gem and Jewellery Association, in collaboration with the National Gem and Jewellery Authority and the Export Development Board, proudly announces the grand celebration of the 30th edition of Facets, Asia's premier gem and jewellery exhibition, scheduled to take place at the esteemed Cinnamon Grand, Colombo, from January 6 to January 8, 2024. This milestone event marks 30 years of successfully highlighting the splendor and glamour of Sri Lankan gems and jewellery in the global stage. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
A few showers will occur in the eastern and north central provinces and in the Matale district. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, southern and Nuwa provinces and Nuwara district after 2 p.m. Fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters are likely at some places in the Galle, Mathura and Ratnapura districts. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces during the morning hours. That was the weather report, and now to this news broadcast, the main points once again. The Minister of Health says that no cases have been reported from the sample tests conducted on the COVID-19 sub-variant JN1. It has been estimated that approximately 2% of the gross domestic product is lost due to the VAT exemptions that prevailed. Landslide early warnings are issued to 6 districts of the island. Cabinet approval is granted for the formulation of a national policy framework for the agricultural sector. The Sri Lanka Navy is to ink an MOU with the US Nuclear Security Administration. And on international news, the Israel's war cabinet due to meet tonight to discuss day after war plans. And on sports news, tennis, Rafael Nadal wins at Brisbane International on long-awaited return from injury. That ends this news broadcast. And back to Chandima Veerakone, as always, on a Tuesday night. Back to you, Chandima.